All right. Okay. Um, well, let's start this. I don't know if you all saw there was I had an episode on Accelerate about the Cassandra operator. I thought it was very good. Thanks to Chris. John got involved in it as well, but I'm sorry that hit the cutting room floor because we had to shorten it up. But there was also some good contributions in there from Yelp and from Sky. It was a great little community chat about Kubernetes and Cassandra. So if you get a chance to watch it, it's really kind of cool. So the agenda items that I put up here today. What I want to talk about right now is some of the things that I've been talking to some folks, like just Apache Cassandra folks, and generally in community, it's like, all right, where do we go now? I'm thinking that what we need to do at this point is not put a lot of pressure on the Apache Cassandra project to, hey, we want to dump some code here, figure it out. I think this is a separate effort. And by that, I mean, getting together the groups that are interested in actually contributing code, creating a separate repo somewhere, doesn't matter. I could create one right now. Working around that and really kind of building this thing, because the CEP as it sits right now, I think is in a it's in an ironed out, it's got a lot of content in it. But for this to move forward, we need to have some code together, if there is code. Now, here are my concerns, is that means that who wants to contribute code, and is there a possible path to making that happen? And this is the real talk part of this, is that we have a lot of parties that have created and have built operators over years, literally. And this isn't like this is a brand new, we're all green field here with code. There isn't a lack of it. There's a lot of it. And this could potentially turn into a really nasty fight in community about all the potential contributors here. I wish that we had Insta cluster here today, but I will make sure to get them on here next time, because they're interested in contributing as well. But I want to open this up for discussion. Is what is our next step moving forward? What's our best way to move forward? I would love to hear some ideas around this. I've floated a few ideas, but I think this is a good discussion point. And if anybody wants to take the floor right away, it's yours.
Yeah, I mean, I have my opinion. I think regarding CASCOP, as I said last time, we're happy to donate it. So one path would be for people to look at it and say, is that acceptable? I can contribute all the list of features it has. We've just updated the documentation. We just did yesterday. So there's a brand new website with the documentation that explains all the steps that you can go through to configure everything that you want to configure in it. So that's one possible path. I mean, it's based on the operator SDK, and it does everything that is on the CEP today. So I don't know. I'm not into politics. I don't want to. I can understand people want to do other things, and I'm not saying that should not do that. But one way would be to say, maybe we look at it and say, is that acceptable or not? And we are working with InstaCluster on CASCOP to include backup and restore right now as we speak. We work together, and they have modified their sidecar to do the restore in online restore for a table that we asked for, because it only did restore on a new cluster. So now it's going to do restore on an existing cluster, thanks to Stefan, who's supposed to come. So the other thing that we need to do with CASCOP would be to include the DataStax sidecar. That would be one way to work together. Is that easy to add? And that would be very nice. And I mean, as I said, CASCOP has nothing orange in it. It's from the start was based for the community. We've tried to put everything on the table, and now I could understand that it's not accepted. I'm not saying it should. I'm just saying that it should be it actually works pretty well, but it's not perfect, huh? But it does. I mean, I look at the most of the commits that are on the other operators, and there's something like 6 or 8 months behind. So okay, we can wait 8 months. That can be. I'm quite sure you guys are going to catch up fairly quickly. But anyway, that's one plan. Okay, I'm just submitting one idea.
I think if perfection can be achieved, we have to unify.
Explain more.
I mean, we have to unify our efforts. Like we have to proceed toward one goal. Because it seems like there's a lot of maybe disparate efforts right now.
And there was a mention of the sidecar that was actually brought up in the contributor meeting. The sidecar, there is a sidecar project, a sidecar CEP, which is turning out to be a pretty hard dependency for the operator. And that was something that we discussed in the Cassandra contributor meeting. As I understand it, that's something we're going to have to manage soon. The sidecar project just seems to have stalled out some. There was some activity last month, but I haven't seen anything really happening in that project for a while. So the sidecar is not a part of the operator. It's a separate CEP. So do we put our effort there first?
Sigh.
Well, I guess it should be the same committee that handles both.
Well, what I would ask, because I mean, from working on the Cassandra project quite a bit, that we keep running into is this question of like, if we have 7 different operators, are they expressing 7 different points of view? Like if a user knows nothing about the ecosystem, they're like, I just want an operator to work with Cassandra. Could we enumerate 7 different operators and each of them have a reason to exist? Or is the Venn diagram, they're basically all overlapping with each other all the way down in terms of how they look to the user? If it's the former, it makes sense just to have them all available and have an agreed upon standardized API for how these things interact in the ecosystem. If it's the latter, that's where I would reiterate Brandon's point that if we have a bunch of different software artifacts that are essentially doing the same thing in the end in terms of their presentation to the user, it doesn't really add a ton of value to any of us, much less the people trying to use the ecosystem, to have a bunch of different options to do the same thing. Does that make sense?
I think we all agree on the target. The target is one operator that is supported by the community for everybody to use. I think we all agree on that. The thing is, what's the starting point? Do we start from scratch? Do we start from Cascop? Do we start from DataStax operator or InstaCluster? Whoever else is, don't know. I don't know all the others, I must say. We're looking quite quickly. But
yeah, I mean, kind of a naive approach and things we've run into on the Cassandra project itself is just say, look, what does the end state look like and which one of the operators is closest, and start from that one and then have everybody else merge into it.
That's what we think as well. And that's what
in theory, that would be your shortest path to whatever the destination is. Now, whether or not that's like politically feasible, or if whatever institution wrote that operator has the bandwidth to deal with the merge cycles, or like there's all kinds of other ecosystem questions that come out from that. But at least from kind of tie breaking on a starting point, it's like if you're going to run a race and you get to choose where you start in the race, you may as well choose whichever starting point is closest to the finish line and go from there.
Jim or Chris, can you guys chime in here? Because is it just a different point of view, or where are you guys at?
Well, I think there's like a lot of aspects to all of this. Sorry if there's some background noise. My wife's on another meeting and my kids are doing something too. It's like the feed. I was trying to go through this. I was looking at all the different operators, like feature list. There is sort of a common set of stuff, and then there's sort of like but how did you do that? Did you like check all these security best practices? Did you do this in a way to like drag new users who know Kubernetes but don't know Cassandra in, versus like people who know Cassandra thoroughly will like feel comfortable setting 200 bits of YAML configuration, but you know, that's a lot of burden for a new user. So I just know how we built our operator. I was working on it since pretty much day one, and now I'm the engineering lead on that team. And I'm kind of pro for some coordination. I just don't know how to get there right now. And yeah, I was going through. We've just to throw it all out there. We've looked at CastCop. Oh, my video's off. We've looked at CastCop. We started our team and wrote up some design docs and started coding for like a week, and then you all released CastCop. So we looked at that and like, oh, there a lot of the CastCop design matches our design pretty close. This is good. Like, let's keep going. Let's confirm. This confirms a lot of our sort of decision-making process. Let's go. And where was I going with that? So, but now that we've made a lot of progress, I've kind of gone back through and tried to do these things side by side. And I think there is some standard stuff that we should try to get right, but it's hard to figure out how we do that without the CRDs matching or without specific behaviors matching. I think we have more tests written now. Like, we've spent a lot of time on testing. And Frank, I don't know, maybe there's more tests you all have that aren't in that repo, but I did try to go through them. They're good. Like, we had very little until somewhat recently, but we put some like dedicated months towards just testing scenarios and testing like the upgrade flow for a user. And I don't know, that's where I'm sort of like, rebooting our effort is not something I want to do, but
Well, nobody wants to do that anyway.
yeah.
So
is there an opportunity to, so we've kind of put up, we have the CEP out there. Is there a opportunity to start to converge on what the CRDs could look like and come to an agreement from the SIG perspective?
I think you're asking a question, and I'd like to know that answer too.
I didn't really
Everyone would like to know that answer.
What was the question? I didn't really hear the question, sorry.
So the question is, we've kind of come together and worked together to build this CEP of what we think the operator should do, right? The community operator. And it sounds like maybe one of the key pieces to getting the ball rolling here is to have a consensus on what the shape of a CRD looks like, whatever it's called. What CRDs do we need, and what goes into those CRDs? How should they be structured? And kind of come to a agreement in that space.
Well, we could compare the existing CRDs, see what's in each, and see what's good in each, and say I need this, or I don't need this. I mean, we've added quite some stuff in it recently because it was requested by the ops team, because they wanted other things that are plug-in to the operator. They wanted to add their own little stuff that was running in parallel, their own sidecars all over the place. Well, so we made something so they could add the sidecars. But okay, that's a way.
So, yeah, we have that Google Doc that's out there now with this CEP content. Should we add a section to that for the various CRDs that we want to describe, and that way we have a way to comment and discuss the various fields and what their purposes are, that kind of thing, and converge into something that's usable?
Personally, I quite like the idea to restrict the debate on the CRD itself, because that's the main thing. I mean, that's what the user going to use. They're going to create a CRD and just apply. Does it work? Does it doesn't work? That's all they want to know. So if we agree on the CRD, I suppose the rest is the rest. Is an engine. I mean, I don't care about the engine in the end, honestly. So I would quite be happy with this personally.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I've done a lot of research into other operator CRDs just to see kind of the shape of them, what they call various fields, what APIs or data structures they use that are built into Kubernetes versus building them themselves, such as like resources, conditions, that kind of thing. And in my opinion, I hope I'm not alone in this, I think having a consensus there is really going to be a solid foundation as we build the engine portion. Like, let's make sure we have the same plan in mind before we start pulling in pieces from the various operators and converging into this single entity.
I like this. John, I'm going to pull you into this because you and I have had some talks in general about just Kubernetes and community, and I think you have an interesting point of view just from your background working at Red Hat. So I'd love to hear your point of view.
Well, so I think the discussions about the CRD, I agree, it's necessary on the one hand. On the other hand, I guess to play a bit of devil's advocate, I feel like it just kind of moves the goalposts around the elephant in the room, which is at some point decisions going to have to be made, or some collaboration in terms of what code is going to be used moving forward, whether it's all of CASCOP, all of CAS operator, all of skies or whatever, or parts. And I think that's, or is it just, or is it the discussion around defining a set of higher level abstractions and APIs, and okay, then go off, maybe come up with a reference implementation and define or have separate implementations. I mean, Kubernetes is, Patrick and I talked about this, pluggability is the name of the game. So it's not, I don't think that's a crazy idea by any stretch. But I think at some point that the discussion around the discussion before it needs to be, it's going to have to be had under those decisions made. Yeah.
Apologies, my phone just cut out, and I'm watching John talking and everyone else nodding their head a little bit. So
he's making good points. You missed it completely.
I heard the part about potentially just moving the goalposts for how we start with code. I definitely want to recognize that this would do that. I don't think it should be the intention. And ideally, with a concrete API in place, whatever platform we build off of, regardless, will have to be tweaked to match that API. And I'm not trying to kick the can on our starting point. I'm just trying to make sure that we have, instead of building off of an existing CRD, we have consensus on the CRD, preferably before this gets donated to Apache.
That has to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for the edification from everybody who's not involved with their respective projects, it would be good as we move forward looking at there's been a discussion about the sidecar, the management sidecar, about rather than just, that's what we're going to use. For my own, I'd like to know, okay, what are the various components and so forth? What are the pros and cons of a particular? So looking at different pieces.
One thing that might be valuable, because we run into these kind of problems a lot, not just in software, but like in the world in general, where you don't have clear metrics to measure things against each other. It's much worse when things are like orthogonal and completely unrelated and you're in the apples versus oranges situation. But here it's like, you could ask the questions of, okay, do we all agree on what good code is? Do we all agree on what measures of quality are? Do we all agree on what measures of testing are? Do we all agree on, if we have a shared set of values around how to measure the the value of things, then we could apply those measures to these different code bases. That might give us some more objective insight, I suppose, into what starting point. Because completely rationally, if you've got multiple groups of people that have offered multiple things, each of them is going to say, I spent a lot of time and energy on this. I don't want to just punt this thing to use something else, right? So there's a piece of this where it's like, how do you break that kind of stalemate where everybody very rationally and very reasonably feels attached to what they've written, and we don't have a way to measure more objectively where's the right place to start? And might there be some value in trying to figure out what we collectively consider, in the case of this project, like quality as a starting point, and then apply those measures independently to each of the projects to figure out where to start from? Sounds like a hell of a lot of work, but thrashing and being stuck is a lot of work too, in my experience. So,
well, and I worry about this is just me being old software guy in the room, is this could descend into a lot of not invented here fast, and it could cause a lot of rifts in the community. It will cause an F ton of rifts in the community if it turns into a civil war between Instacluster, Orange, and DataStax over one stupid commit. And
well, I mean, there's a very easy solution to that, Patrick, which is you have the operator project and you have multiple sub projects, which are everybody's operators. And you just say, we're punting on having a reference operator because we don't have a shared value system on what it should be. All right, you avoid the civil war at the expense of it having a more difficult entry point to the community for people that aren't specialists. So, I mean, this isn't like we're going to define hills to die on, but I know in my experience working on code, I don't think I've ever seen a line of code from anybody else that I liked. And I also have never seen a line of code from myself that I liked 6 months later.
I've never liked a line of code from you either, Josh.
Yeah, fuck you, Brandon. So there's this part where it's like codification of mental abstractions is always going to be like, there's a friction there. And so we've got to figure out a way to get away from that into just a more objective valuation of the right place to start that we can all agree on. Maybe that's what I would posit. And the thing is, we've run into this a ton on the Cassandra project itself, right? Like if you're looking at consensus algorithms and you've got the Raft party, the Paxos party, the ePaxos party, and if everybody's just going to stick their flag on a hill and be like, I hate all the rest of it, I want to do this thing, you never can move. Like you got to figure out, okay, what is it that we're trying to achieve? How do we measure whether or not an artifact is achieving that thing? How do we apply those measures to all of them and then make a collective decision that's consistent with each other?
I 100% agree with that.
You're on mute.
Very muted, Patrick, by the way. Exceptionally muted.
And I'm not going to make that point again. God, it's like here I'm trying to be a good Zoom citizen and I get busted. What I was saying is, it sounds like what we're trying to get around. I appreciate everyone showing up. This is the first thing that we have to do, right? And noping out is okay, but it doesn't move us forward. But the CRD, if we agree that, and I think that, that's fine. Notice we're doing that, but I'm sensing that we need to have a clearer direction from the sidecar project before we embark on this, or is that dependency going to be a problem? Because if it is, then I'm happy to put my energy towards making this, trying to combine these efforts and to move forward.
I can reply for Cascop. I mean, we were very happy to see the sidecar coming, and we didn't know it, so we didn't plan to include it, but now we have. It means that next step after the backup and restore is made, we plan to, but it will depend what happens with the community, because we don't really want to maintain our thing forever. It's not, we're not in this game, okay? We're a telco, we're not here to maintain. We're happy to donate and participate, but if we have, I would like, as product owner, to basically add the features that you have in the DataStax sidecar, because there are things that we need, and we were actually wanted to do one and say, oh no, we're not going to do it, we're just going to use theirs. But we need to include that, and we haven't done it yet. So for me, it's a real bonus to have it, and it should come with the operator.
Here's a thought. There's like Josh said, no one wants to go ahead and throw away the hard work and effort that they've that they've done. What if you have rather than somebody having to be forced into making that decision, you agree on, for a particular feature pieces, what needs to be done, and start thinking about a code base from scratch, essentially, but it's bringing in an agreement on, okay, here's the library we're going to use. Here's what we're going to do for writing our end-to-end tests. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what framework we're going to use for the just generating the scaffolding, whatnot, whether it's operator SDK, cube builder, whatever. And so reach the agreement at that level. Well, yes, it's obviously duplicating work that's already been done, but at least in theory, you'll be able to iterate fast or somewhat. I mean, because people have already blaze these trails and leave the technical debt behind, and you're not forcing anyone to throw away work.
It's a lot easier to merge on smaller scopes that way. Where if here's a sub feature, we have 3 implementation, let's merge the 3 together, and it's a lot less from scratch, and it's a lot more from big bang merging the whole damn project. That's too big of an elephant to eat.
No, that's not going to work. I think
but identifying specific functionality and saying, here's all the different options and their points of view on it. Let's take the best of all of them and go from the ground up with what there, I think would certainly be a lot faster than just writing it from scratch. Although it does start from a clean slate, so to speak. But
the main worry I would have is that, on our side, we have some features that may not be really only for Orange. Obviously, there would be from ops people all over the place, but it may be a bit funny to hear when we say we want to have a specific sidecars for log analyzing, for example. So we've done that. We've put volumes, and our ops guys just popped up their tail sidecar in there or anything. If we put a PR with this and they say, oh no, sorry, it's too funny. Your ideas are too funny. We don't need that, and then it doesn't work anymore. See, that's the idea. Because I do believe that we have the big chance we have that we all on the same base. We all work from the operator SDK, so we all do the same reconcile loops. They're different names from objects, but they're basically the same stuff we're doing. And we generate Kubernetes objects, and the main things is done by Kubernetes. So we're translating a CRD into objects for Kubernetes, and then put some tests behind. That's all we're doing in the end. So what we need to make sure is that it is usable it's easy to use. And honestly, we are at that level with our ops team, and it's very difficult to use. They just hate it. That's the thing. It's just a mess for them.
Yeah, I think that feedback and that knowledge, I forget who just said this. Maybe it was what John was saying. That's what's really valuable, is what did we try and what didn't work, and why is it still difficult for them? So yeah, we're using our operator in Astra, where it's total automation. So it's hard. There is user feedback, but it's a different sort. And we're also going down trying to recommend DataStax customers to use this, but we need to get more feedback from that. So it's getting that feedback from people. Yeah, I've been trying to solicit feedback from anybody at DataStax. Do you want to spin this up and tell me, even the kind of least knowledgeable person about Kubernetes can be well, I tried this and this is what I saw. And you say, oh, this is why you got confused.
So
and I can make it better for you.
Everyone's capturing a really important moment here. When it comes to usability, almost none of us have an important opinion in that regard, because we have expertise at a different level. I'm thinking of, so here's the person that I want to be impressed by the end state of what we're trying to accomplish here. Someone who sits down for the first time to use Cassandra and wants to do it in Kubernetes and finds it a really simple and just an honest, this is a good experience. And from our laptop through CI/CD test into production, yeah, that was really easy. I don't know why anyone thought Cassandra was hard.
Well, Cassandra is never easy.
but it could be if we do it right. That's true.
Can I
I
expand
don't-
on that?
That's
Can
a
I expand on
point.
that point for a
I
second?
must be the worst Cassandra user here because I never used Cassandra at all. But I'm just talking about things I hear. So
Okay.
it's,
So Patrick, to kind of expand on that point a little bit. So this kind of goes back to what Chris was saying earlier about looking at other operators, and that end user that you're describing really isn't somebody who's just looking to deploy Cassandra. So in my case, so I'm at DreamWorks. My team, we're just 5 DBAs, but we operate 15 different types of databases. And so an important perspective for us was, how do we have the same tooling and the same, how do I limit the number of operators and the number of things that my small lean team needs to learn? So the way that we operate a Cassandra database should really reflect very closely to how we do Couchbase or how we do Elasticsearch or anything else, right? So, and again, Chris was kind of mentioning this with going with that CRD approach first, and maybe looking at how do we do things in a more, even outside the scope of just Cassandra, in a broader context from a database administration perspective, right?
Amara, I love you, man. I think that is exactly where my head is. It's like, and so it's interesting. I've been talking to a few folks. Jim and I were actually just talking about this. I actually feel like the operator is only one part of the puzzle.
yeah. I mean,
I think Kubernetes has a lot.
Sorry.
There's a lot of work in Kubernetes that needs to be done to make it work better with databases, period.
Well, but that's we actually. I think the debate we're having about the starting point is a waste of time. Basically, we need to go forward, make something work for the users, and just make it usable. And for example, our problem is that we are running on internal cloud, so there's not infinite resources. They're really finite resources, limited. And that's where we struggle all the time, because it says, oh no, I can't schedule your stuff. You want a node? Oh no, you don't have enough CPUs. Oh, you lack some memory. Oh no, the disks are full. Sorry, you can't do that. And they say, oh, why can't the operator tell me beforehand that my schedule is not going to work? I say, well, you can't do that. If you do the dry run thing, it just says, oh no, your thing is written correctly. It's going to work. It's just going to stay pending until the guy there installs some machines, and that takes 6 months, because try to get hardware these days with the COVID thing, so it's difficult. So I'm saying that even if guys that are in the cluster like you, like clusters administration or stuff, there is a lot to add to the operator for it to be useful. I mean, people on the open source thing can play with CRDs and manage them if they don't want to pay an extra. I mean, what we want is a nice UI that says, oh, I'm dropping a cluster in Kubernetes, and that gives you a nice cluster. That's your Astra offering, I suppose. So I mean, the operator is I don't know. In the long term, it's going to be a small point. So the starting point, we should just decide, and maybe say who's going to put
of hardware is being disintegrated these days too.
You still need some.
Well, it should work in a variety of environments, whether you're racking up your own equipment or you're renting it from Amazon or Google or Microsoft or AliCloud or whoever. It just needs to work. So I'm really happy about how this conversation is going. I think we're all kind of like we're starting to circle around like progress to getting things done, which is at this point I'm hearing let's do the CRD first. So what do we need to do? Start a repo. I mean, another doc. I want to try to not do things in Google Doc as much as we possibly can.
We can copy and paste the CRD in Google Doc, and we can exchange there.
Okay.
That's proposition. I don't know. As I said, we have a nice documentation now, so everyone can look at it, and we try to make it as acceptable as possible. That's all we're doing.
Okay. All right. Then I would be happy to start that process, put a Google Doc out there for us.
Well, the same. Why don't we put it on the CP? No?
Well,
You want to stop that?
Google Doc is easier to work with right now for sure, but we can, of course, we can add that in there as we go along. So, well, how would you propose we move forward then, Frank?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm very new to that. So we started the CP. Are we stopping that CP thing or not? Oh, we can.
Yeah, let me explain how the CEP, as I understand it, it needs to go. Is we need to start creating things as a part of this, which is the CEP, of course, is an important document, but there also needs to be like a combined, like here's the outline, here's the potential code for it. We need to put together a package. And the code is really important part is maybe just a CRD and the proposal is enough, but we need to get to a ground state with that and then put that into the project.
Well, on my
I
side,
would maybe consider just working outside the project.
That's what I was talking about from the beginning is I think we need to do a lot of work outside of the project. The Apache Cassandra project is not a Kubernetes project. So I think what the work we're doing now happens outside of the project for now.
Just one point of clarification. When you're talking about CRD, you're really talking about multiple CRDs, right? We're talking about possibly encapsulating different functionality in different system resources, right?
Yeah, however many it takes, it does one. Historically, I think CASCOP has the concept of a cluster as well as a data center. CAS operator just works on our data center right now. So there's a few different logical constructs that we want to model inside of the Kubernetes control plane. And that's what the CRDs would encompass.
Yeah, and I think that's the right approach. I mean, as far as like targeting CRDs versus CEPs, because when you're talking about CEPs, you're really looking at defining functionality. When you're coming at it from a CRD perspective, you're really looking at it from a design architecture perspective, which is really probably how we should be talking about this. And secondly, if you look at Kubernetes enhancements as well, like they start with a design proposal. They start with what would this custom resource look like before they start getting into implementation, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is modeling this more towards the Kubernetes process would be good. I think like we've definitely, as we've added on features, been like, what is like the precedent, like kind of like legal precedent, or at least that's how in the US this stuff works. I don't understand globally, but like what do other operators do for this problem? Because we can't be the only people adding a validating webhook, and I don't want to do it in some, like operator SDK has support for it, but it's very poor support, and leaving you to kind of document how a user turns this thing on and like what kind of privileges they need on their cluster is kind of just a big mess. Like operator SDK, honestly, is the more we've used it, the more we find it underwhelming, and we're working on another. We're not abandoning CAS operator, but we're working on another operator thing and for something else, and we're looking at just straight Kube Builder. And it seems like more of the community is going to straight Kube Builder. So looking at that kind of the Kubernetes community, I would say would probably get us to the best solution with the least amount of headbutting, friction, bad feelings, whatever. Because sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, for what it's worth, our first implementation of an operator was done using Operator SDK, and then we ended up rewriting it from scratch using Kube Builder.
Yeah, I mean,
we did the opposite. We started from scratch, and then we moved to Operator SDK. But
yeah, when you all released it, Operator SDK was the best one. And we talked to some people at Google. The guy who's like he's like the number 2 committer or whatever. He's like the designer of Kube Builder, which is really then the designer of a lot of this stuff, because all of Operator SDK is on top of Kube Builder anyway. Where I'm going with this is he was like, oh yeah, use Kube Builder, it'll be good. Use Kube Builder, it'll be good. He works on GKE, and we looked at Kube Builder, and the documentation was not good at all, and the examples didn't work. And we were like, nope, we made the right choice. Let's keep going ahead. But then go back 6 to 7 months later,
Well,
KubeBuilder got a lot better, and I think he was speaking off of like an internal to Google version. I can't be sure about that, but
you can also look at the one from AWS as well. The how is it called? CDK as well. Cloud Development Kit.
yeah, that looks like it's really more of a Helm replacement. It
Yeah, I don't
it
know.
just generates YAML, and
Okay.
I don't think it's doesn't have the idea of a reconcile loop. It's just crushing down the barrier to bring your language to like generating Kubernetes YAML. So like in JavaScript or Python, you can speak their language. It looks like it's just as much typing. I was hoping for more when I read the announcement, and then I looked at the code. But yeah, I think we should.
But it would be funny that we both on the operator SDK and we switch for the new one for another thing.
We don't have to. We just upgraded to the latest operator SDK. I did that, and they're kind of converging. And if you look at the operator SDK, there's some tickets about merging themselves into KubeBuilder. They have some kind of funny initiative. I can't quite remember. But where I'm going with this is like, I do think that if we try, I think getting the CRD, I would appreciate the chance to talk about it and go over some choices and why we did some things the way we did, and I don't know if you feel the same way or not. And I hear what you said before, Frank, that there's some stuff you added where it's like, yeah, maybe this is like just for our ops people. I think someone else could find it useful, but like, I did it for them, and like I hope other people, like, I can't prove anyone, but we feel the same way. I'm sure we feel the same way.
The thing is, everything we did is I mean, if you don't put it, it works. Nothing is compulsory. It's all optional. So if you add it, it works. If you don't put it, it doesn't work.
Yeah. But so anyway, I'd be happy to go over that, and if we want to like look at another operator or just R2 or whatever, like I'm happy to participate in that. But I do think getting the CRD right is important. Everything kind of.
But we did what you said. I mean, we looked at what other operators were doing, and when they requested something else, we say, oh, they do that for the Kafka thing, so we just made some copy and paste, adapt it, and say, oh, and we could do it again on a number-based code. I mean, what we want is in a year's time to all have the same operator, and
if possible,
we will not care where it comes from in the end. Anyway.
Okay, so I definitely want to make sure we have some action items in here. Like, okay, because we don't want to. I love meeting with all of you like every couple of weeks, but I'm also an engineer. I like to ship shit. But it sounds like we're getting, but I'm also being super careful about this. I don't want to just come out and say, all right, we got to ship something, so let's get it together. I mean, this is the hardest part. I think this is probably one of the harder open source projects or project things that I've worked around, is because there's just so much existing code out there. Usually, yeah, it makes it a huge challenge, and I'm really happy people are showing up. I'm going to keep reiterating that. Thank you. If we could turn this into a CRD discussion, great. I think, John, why don't you and I spend a little bit of time getting it, like finding a home for this to be discussed. Like, here it is, let's discuss it. Just so we'll put the energy behind that. What I worry about is we're going to start, in order to have the discussion, we're using Google, but like there's using the Cassandra dev mailing list almost seems like a bad idea right now. So you got an extra hand there, Jim.
It's an 8-year-old hand. Sorry about that.
I was going to say, now I understand why Jim can code like he does. He has 4 arms. I don't know. Brandon,
on our side, we've got one main guy that we're going to talk about the CRD. That's Cyril, which is not here. But Cyril is in the Florida. So I don't know, where is Jim? Are you in the US as well?
Yeah, I'm by New York City.
Okay, so you're almost on the same time zone. So I suppose if you two can work on it, I'll be happy to. I would accept whatever Cyril says. I mean, I do trust the guy that know more than me, so I wouldn't be very up.
All right.
So,
Did you
Let's do
invoke
that.
me, Patrick?
What?
Did you invoke me? Because it
I was-
seemed like you did.
I did. I was because hey, PMC guy that happens to be on this call.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Don't hate.
I
him.
see how this is gonna roll.
What is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? I'm going to make you do something? No.
Yeah.
No. My
That's
idea.
exactly.
Can
that's
we?
exact-
Can we split away? I mean, can we on ASF Slack? Can we just create a new channel? Is that okay?
I think that's okay.
Yeah, because we did one for Cassandra Medusa and for Reaper. I think having our own Slack channel would be a really good idea.
I don't think anyone can stop you from doing it. Let me put it that way. You don't have to ask for permission. You can beg for forgiveness.
Oh, I'm good at that. All right. So I think I'm going to just go ahead and do that. I'm just going to, well, because the camera's rolling, I just hit record. So I'm going to go ahead and create a Slack channel for this. And that will be our gathering place. I will post it. Everyone can see it. We'll be able to have more discussions as we go along. And it won't be populating the dev list, which has stuff going on. They talk about stuff like tokens and compaction strategies. And well, no, we're talking about important stuff like Kubernetes. So I'll create that.
By and large, like a separate project.
Yes.
So we should treat it as such. In my
it is. Yeah.
Well, it's a different language. Everything is different. So.
Yeah, everyone talks Java over there. No, we do things in Go here, right?
Yeah, well.
See, look at Brandon's already angry about what? We're not using Java? See, time for a new Slack channel.
Hey, no. I'm not a Java fan. Don't get me wrong.
I know, back in the day, Perl guy. So we have, I think we have an action item right now. Let's rally around the CRD. Like now.
Okay.
Frank?
Are we dumping the CEP right too?
No.
We leave it live.
We're the CEP is in a good place right now.
There's so many statues. The other guy says draft raised. There's so many statues. I just stopped reading his mail.
Yeah. That's Mick, and he and I talked about this before we get ready. Before we say draft is ready, I think we need to bottom out on the CRD. Because that will be a huge part.
I think that's a very good point. I mean, that's a good starting point. We all agree on that, and that's great. Always start.
I also need to get us aligned up or figure out what's going on the sidecar side because there is a dependency there. We should figure out because that was brought up by Vinay, who's doing the sidecar project. It's like, hey, there's a lot of sidecars and operators, and we have a sidecar project, and I'm like, okay. Let's talk about that too. But yeah. All right.
Okay.
Good. So Frank, I know it's late there. Thank you for staying up for us. Is there anything else we need to discuss?
Well, what you're going to say on the mailing list. Is that what you say on the document there? Yeah. Oops, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I didn't really type up very good notes, did I? I will.
I put one sentence. I said we should agree on the CRD. Yeah. How many CRDs?
CRD star. How many we need, and we'll try to get them together to discuss. We'll turn the CRD into the discussion point. How about that?
We'll put CRD experts together and they'll sort it out.
Right. So
that sounds good. Okay.
And a new Slack channel.
Yeah, send me the link because I have no access. I don't know where your Slack channels are. As I said, I'm quite new to the community. Sure.
Yeah, there's I'll send a link to how to. It's really easy to sign up. I mean, it's getting on the ASF Slack is just it's a link, and then once you're in there, You just pick the channels you want to go to. So I'll make sure and send that information out. Are you on the dev list right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I received the list.
Okay.
I don't dare answering, but
Okay.
I see not so many people answers your emails. But I'm not a dev. I'm not even a Cassandra user, so I don't feel like I should write in this list too much.
That's feel free. It's wide open. You can say anything you want. Just look at any of the other emails.
But tying that back,
I
like,
mean, maybe if we're doing this properly, there should be another dev list.
Yes.
If it's a separate project, it's a separate. Makes sense.
Is there one for the sidecar though?
I mean, if we're gonna do it, we should do it all the way, right?
Should I just throw that on the dev list as a discuss, or should I send it directly to private ad?
Throw it out as a discuss, yeah.
Okay.
I just
Jim?
wanted to mention what Frank just said, like not being a Cassandra user. I didn't use Cassandra before I started working at DataStax, and I'm still inside my first 2 years. But I think that's a lot like what I'm gonna butcher your name, Umair said, where it's like if you want to use this in Kubernetes, maybe you shouldn't have to care. Maybe you should know that Cassandra has seed nodes, but the operator should just like not expose so much of the guts, you know? So that's where I think we are all speaking the same language here. That's like there's sort of just like a minimal thing that like doesn't really help the actual Kubernetes administrator that much at the end of the day, hiding these like, I don't know, intricate subjects and how they can still shoot themselves in the foot. But if you set the right best practices as much as you can in the operator, like now you have to really go and meddle with those underlying Kubernetes building blocks. So getting the CRD right and like some cooperation and getting the feedback, like you mentioned, if it is hard still for your operations team, I'm curious why, because our operator looks a lot like yours. So what is still hard for them, you know? Learning this stuff, I think, in a shared way is helpful for everyone.
I think there's quite some ops people that don't want to go to Kubernetes in the first place. So they will find any problem overwhelming. And a good reason.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that whole elephant in the room.
Who's starting it? I'm not saying they're not good. They're saying sometimes I mean, our internal Kubernetes has lots of constraints that are not public. You're not allowed to have root. You don't have root access. You can't. It's read-only stuff. You're not cluster-wide. You don't have any cluster-wide rights. You can't do a kubectl top, for example. That's on nodes. That's not allowed. Lots of things that you can't do. So it's a bit of a pain for the users. And that if you want to have a multi-tenant, because that's what we have, multi-tenant cluster, then it will be, you have secure data, so you can't see what the other people is doing. So that means restrictions, and that's, you have your operator works in that environment as well. But I mean, it's not the easiest. Sorry, I just dropped the mood.
I think you found shared pain. All right, we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. There'll be notes and recordings and that sort of thing on the dev list soon. But I really appreciate everyone's time and energy. This is really, I think, a good thing. As we keep talking, like I said, thank you for showing up, and let's just keep doing that. We have some interesting action items to tackle. If we need to get on a call sooner than that, I'm more than happy to schedule that or get it on the board. I like the energy, though. Let's keep it going. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.